I'm Emily. If anyone hasn't met me, I'm the research officer at Ataxia UK. And I'm going to be giving the FA research update. As an overview of what I'm going to be talking about, I'll cover Ataxia UK and a short update on what we do in the research department. I'll be talking about developments in identifying new treatments for FA. I'll cover a couple of global FA research initiatives that are going on. I'll talk about current clinical trials and opportunities for you to take part in research. What does Ataxia UK do to promote research? So some of you may be quite familiar with Ataxia UK and what we're doing, but for anyone that isn't, I just wanted to cover quickly our research strategy. And the overall aim of the Ataxia UK research strategy is that Ataxia UK aims to maximise the impact of research in improving diagnosis and developing treatments that are available to patients. And we do this in a number of different ways. The way that you might be most familiar with is that we fund a wide range of projects. And as well as this, we work as the link between the ataxia community and the research community. So we make sure that information and communication is flowing between these two groups and that researchers are asking the questions that people with ataxia want answered. We also help researchers to recruit for clinical trials or research studies. We collaborate with researchers, with pharma companies and with other charities. So we introduce researchers to each other if we think that's useful. We provide a lot of information about ataxia to pharma companies to get them interested in research and treatments for ataxia. And we co-fund projects with other charities. And basically anywhere we see a useful collaboration, we go for it. And we also organise conferences and workshops. And the next conference we've got coming up is in November, and it's the International Ataxia Research Conference. And these conferences are a really good opportunity for researchers to get together, to share information about ataxia and to push research forward. So that's a few things that the research department have been doing. And today I'm covering FA research, so I just wanted to quickly run through the cause of FA before we talk about developments in treatment. So FA is caused by a mistake or mutation in the frataxin gene, and this means the gene is read less, so we get less frataxin protein in cells. And this has a knock-on effect because frataxin protein is involved in many cellular processes. So this disrupts processes within the cells, and we see oxidative stress, an increase in iron in a part of the cell called the mitochondria, and cell damage. So this is the process that causes FA, and there's a number of places in this process that can be targeted for research. So for example, you could target the gene using gene therapy, and that increases the reading of the frataxin gene. You can target the amount of frataxin protein in cells, or you can target the disrupted cellular processes or the cellular damage. And they're the three areas of research I'll talk about today. So first of all, developments in identifying new treatments for FA using genetic approaches. Gene therapy is something that we hear a lot about for a number of different conditions, and it means to either replace or repair the gene that causes the condition, so in this case the frataxin gene. And there's a number of companies that are in early stages of developing these treatments for FA, and their approach generally is to deliver a functional version of the frataxin gene into the cells that need treatment. And they use a viral vector, which is a way of transporting the gene to do this. And all the companies that are shown here have studies currently going on in preclinical development. And that means they haven't been tested in people, but they're being looked at in the lab. And Ataxia UK is funding a project by Dr. Philip Lim, and his group are looking at a specific virus that they're using as a transporter to deliver the frataxin gene. And at the moment they're studying how this virus moves around and distributes in the body using animal models. So next, what about targeting the frataxin protein itself? And one way of doing this is to introduce the frataxin protein into cells. And that's something that Chondrial Therapeutics are looking at. And this is a company formed by Dr. Mark Payne, who developed the treatment. And they're looking at, is it possible to deliver the frataxin protein itself into cells as a treatment for FA? And the difficulty with using protein in this way as a treatment is that it's hard to deliver the protein to the cells without it being degraded. But Conjureal Therapeutics have shown positive results in a mouse model of FA, and they're carrying on with preclinical studies at the moment. So we look forward to hearing more about this project in the future. As well as delivering the frataxin protein itself to cells, you can use drug treatment. And there's a number of studies going on at the moment to find a drug that's able to increase the amount of frataxin protein in cells. And I've just listed a few of them here. So interferon gamma is a drug that increases frataxin in multiple cell types and also in a mouse model of FA. Etravirine is an antiviral that's used in the clinic at the moment to treat HIV, and this has been shown to increase frataxin in cells taken from patients. And dimethyl fumarate is a drug used to treat multiple sclerosis, or MS, and researchers have really recently shown that this increases frataxin in cells, in mouse models, and also in people with MS that have had this treatment. So there's a number of projects going on in this area at the moment. And finally, what about targeting the disrupted cell processes or the cell damage? And one way that you can do this is to target stem cells. And this is experimental as a treatment for FA at the moment, but Ataxia UK and FARA have recently co-funded a project that took place in Bristol looking at the possibility of activating stem cells. And they carried out a project using a drug called GCSF. And GCSF is a drug that we know mobilizes or activates stem cells, and it's already used in the clinic for other reasons, so we know quite a lot about it. And the group in Bristol have shown that GCSF enters the brain, it promotes movement of stem cells, it increases neuronal growth, and it also protects neurons that are there. And they've shown that this improves motor function in an FA mouse model, and it increases frataxin. And they've recently completed a pilot trial where they looked at this in 6 people with FA and also in human cells, and we're hoping to be able to report more on that trial soon. The researchers are now planning a larger trial to see if this could be an effective treatment for FA. And Ataxia UK is involved in the design of this trial. So we think it's really important at the planning stage of a clinical trial to get input from people with FA and their families. And in order to do this, we're holding a workshop at our offices in London on October the 15th, where we'll be discussing the trial with the team from Bristol and with people with FA and their families. So if anyone would like to come to this meeting, let me know and I can give you some more information. So that's covered research that's at early stages, that's in pilot trials or in the lab. But what about clinical trials that are already taking place? So Reata have the MOXIE trial, which you may have heard of. And MOXIE is a NRF2 activator, and it has antioxidant properties. And this was carried out in the UK, and the London Ataxia Centre was the UK trial site. It was carried out in 2 parts. And part 1, which was a dose escalation study, has finished. And part 2 is ongoing, but it isn't recruiting at the moment. The results of part 1, which was carried out in 69 people with FA, helped to show the safety and to define the dose that would be used in part 2. And they also saw that the drug activated NRF2 and increased mitochondrial function in cells, which is what they were looking for. This part of the trial wasn't designed in order to see improvements in symptoms, but they did see some benefits in one of the clinical rating scales for FA. And we're expecting results for part 2 later this year. Minorix Therapeutics are looking at PPAR gamma. And this is a protein that's found in cells, and in FA we know that it doesn't function correctly. So Minorix are looking at a PPAR gamma activator called MIN102. And they have shown in a phase 1 clinical trial that MIN102 is well tolerated and it's able to reach the brain. And the phase 2 trial is currently ongoing in a number of European countries. Takeda are a company looking at D-serine. D-serine occurs naturally in the body, and it activates specific receptors that may be important to motor functioning and signaling of neurons. So Takeda are looking at a drug called TAK-831, which increases D-serine, and that's in a phase 2 trial in the States, and again we expect results this year. Resveratrol is a naturally occurring compound found in the skin of red grapes, which has the potential to improve mitochondrial function, and that's being tested at the moment in Australia. So as well as carrying out research in the lab and clinical trials, it's also really important for researchers to know as much as they can about FA, and the more that we know about the condition, the more effective we'll be at designing treatments. And that's something that these global research initiatives are aiming to do. So the first one is the FA Global Patient Registry. And many charities, including Ataxia UK, have patient registries. And this is what we use to recruit for clinical trials, it's how we communicate with you, it's how we disseminate all our information. But these charities that are shown here have now come together to build a new registry that's going to be a global patient registry for FA. And this is a global effort of these patient groups around the world to pool information in one place to make the registry a really powerful resource for research. And this is important because when researchers are developing new drugs, they need to understand the condition in question and the experience of the patients. And also, in order to run clinical trials, they need to be able to find patients who are willing to be part of the trial and who are eligible. So this global patient registry has been built to collect more information about FA directly from patients and to help match patients with studies they might be interested in. So hopefully, everyone's interested in registering for this when it's launched. And to do that, you need to look out for the launch, which will be in our magazine, in our newsletters, and will be advertised on our website quite soon. And I just wanted to add that although Ataxia UK is one of the lead organisations that have been developing the registry, joining the Global Patient Registry won't be the same as joining Ataxia UK, and we encourage everyone to do both so that you benefit from both. And another initiative at the moment is EFACTS, and this is the European FA Consortium for Translational Studies. This is going on in a number of sites in Europe, including London, which is still recruiting. And the data that's being gathered from these studies is being used to design clinical trials. And this was funded by EuroAtaxia, which Ataxia UK is part of, and different pharma partners. So if anyone's interested in registering for this, you can contact the London Ataxia Centre or Professor Junti. And finally, what about opportunities for you to take part in research? The first one is the upcoming FA nicotinamide trial. And this is a clinical trial that will be recruiting later this year, we hope, and we're hoping to recruit up to 90 people to the site in London when it starts. So you can look out, this will be in our website, in our magazine and newsletters, or alternatively, there's a breakout this afternoon, that's the nicotinamide trial breakout, where you can learn more about the trial and ask any questions that you have. And that will be run by Professor Junti and Dr. Julie Greenfield, who's our head of research. We have a couple of surveys on our website at the moment. We have patient attitudes to clinical trials in ataxia. And this has been developed by the team at the London Ataxia Centre in collaboration with Ataxia UK and FARA. And what the researchers are hoping to learn from this is the attitude of patients towards clinical trials, so that in the future they can design better trials with patients in mind. And we also have the physical activity for people with rare neurological conditions survey. This has been developed by researchers at UCL and Cardiff with Ataxia UK as one of the patient representatives. So they're aiming to understand the level of physical activity among people with rare neurological conditions, and ataxia is one of the conditions that they're looking at. And the next step, once they've gathered all the information using this survey, the next step is to develop a self-management program to support physical activity in people with rare neurological conditions. So we think this is a really good project to be a part of. And the last report we had from this group was that people with ataxia had contributed the most responses to the survey. And that's brilliant. We want to keep that going because then ataxia will be really well represented in the project. So if you'd like to take part in either of these surveys, they can be found on our website under Taking Part in Research and Healthcare Research. And there's also some flyers around that look like this that have information about both the surveys and the trial planning workshop that we're holding in a couple of weeks. So you can take these away with you and they'll remind you where to find the survey and what they're all about. That's it. So thank you everyone for listening. I'm happy to try and answer any questions, or you can email me on that email address anytime.